Gather up the kids and the old folks, shut down the contraptions and dim the lights. Put away your pocket-sized magic lantern shows, at least for a little while. Close your eyes and listen. It's time to strike off on the paths less traveled, the lonely roads, the dark mountain paths. Here we experience stories from the hills and hollers, the riverbanks and the brush. It's time to venture into the Wild and Woolly Ozarks. I'm your native guide and host, Champ Herren. Welcome, gentle people. Welcome. It's a beautiful day. The drought lingers yet, and it's dry, and I was just talking to our guest how dusty, and coughed out a bunch of dust right here before we got started. But it is a wonderful promise that the ridgelines of Dry Creek are starting to be tinged with yellow and orange from the hardwoods. It gives us an expectation of what's to come. The color will soon be full throttle, only to leave us once with a sudden cold rain. It always happens every year. We always expect it to happen quicker, and we're always so sad when it's all of a sudden gone. So take some time in the Ozarks and look at the fall. Fall also means Halloween and a bunch of other harvest celebrations, local festivals. And we certainly want to help that out. If you know of something, drop us a line and let us know. I want to thank all of our new followers that we have received on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. You all are great. Thank you for coming and watching us grow. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and leave us a like while you're there. We also have a whole series of shorts on TikTok, because that's what TikTok is, that are kind of some micro topics that I really am either going to tease you with about what we're going to go into the podcast, or maybe that's just kind of the extent of it. There's nothing more really to tell, and I don't want to maybe daisy chain a bunch of them together. So we're experimenting with that. Thank you again for your patience as we learn this new media. Now, today's guest knows a lot about TikTok. Her intriguing videos take the listener through Ozark murders, some solved, some now cold cases. She has made several short videos about the supernatural and the spooky side of her Arkansas home. Of course, I'm talking about the TikTok queen of Ozark's true crime, Amber Vance. Amber, welcome to the Wild and Woolly Ozarks.
Thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here.
So, you have such a body of work out there. For those who are not familiar with Amber, you can go to YouTube or to TikTok and you can search Amber Vance, and you're going to come up with just strings and strings and strings of stuff. And so, what I really want to accomplish today, you all can go look at that, and I encourage you to do so. Some of the notable cases that are on there are the Cassidy rainwater case in Windyville, Missouri, the 3 missing women in Springfield, other famous cases in, maybe I'm less familiar with, in Arkansas, and others that maybe haven't gotten the level of attention they should have until Amber took out after them. She is sort of a TikTok pit bull with lipstick when it comes to getting information. And so I encourage you to go look at that. But Amber, why don't you give us a little bit of background about who you are and how you got started in doing what you're doing, this type of content creation?
Okay, well, actually, I don't really know how I ended up here. I'm a mom. I had my 3rd baby in 2022, and I was just at home with her. And so I started interacting on TikTok more, of just like, I'm bored, let's talk. And I actually joined a conversation one day about doppelgangers. And that's what started my whole TikTok content creation, because I just felt like I had something to add to that conversation. And then people liked it. So I started telling other legends and folklore stories. And that's really what I started out with. I didn't mess with crime that much at the beginning.
Yeah.
It's mostly just the legends and the stories. I'm a big history buff. So a lot of them were like historically angled or just really strange mysteries. And it just kind of grew from there.
Right. Right.
It wasn't ever anything I set out to achieve. It was just something that I kind of fell into.
Okay. Well, I've seen some of your, of course, the Gal Row is one of the famous Arkansas legends. That's actually, I believe, how I found you, as I was looking through some stories that we wanted to deal with and tell, and I was looking for YouTube equivalents, just doing some research, and that's how I found you. And then
okay.
Then I got into all of the other stuff. So you make the so give us some examples of some of the first ones you started out with. You said you'd started with the doppelganger. But
yeah, I was actually
to do these, or did you just do them from home or from your studio?
I just did it from home on my phone and just kind of jumped on. That first story was actually a girl that was talking about how she thought she saw her doppelganger at Target. And I just there's a thing you can do on TikTok called Stitch the Video, where you grab a little bit of that original video and then you can add something to it.
Okay.
And I was just basically like, hey, I know something about doppelgangers because I'm a weirdo that loves all these weird legends. And it just kind of went from there. But then I think the first Arkansas story I told was Hell's Half Acre in Hot Springs.
Yeah.
And I loved that story because I've been going to hot springs my whole life. My mom and my dad were big rock hounds. So we spent a lot of time digging for crystals and this and that and the other. And so I was like, oh, I love hot springs. Can't believe I'd never heard of this bottomless hole with a fallen angel chained at the bottom. And I just thought that was such a fun story. But then I told it was the Blowing Cave. That's my favorite Arkansas story, probably,
right,
about the blue people that supposedly live in this city beneath this cave. And I think where is that? It's not in Cave City, but it's near it.
Yeah.
Look, I blanked out. I don't know exactly where it's at, but that's my favorite one, I think.
It's funny that you get certain towns that have legends of caves. I haven't gotten
Cushman. That's what it is. I just thought of it. Sorry to interrupt you.
Say it again.
Cushman Caverns. That's the real name. Yeah.
There was a lot of mining activity. It never really amounted to anything like around Joplin, but around my hometown. And I'm convinced that these legends of these huge caves that are where people can walk from one end of town to the other and never go outside, and there's doors for people's basements, and all of these just really urban legends kind of sprang from mining. And so I've found other cave legends in other towns that are very similar. It's a fun legend to play with.
Yes, it is. It is. And that was one that really intrigued me at the time. And I think what probably started me looking up like other Arkansas legends. Like, I wonder if there's any more blue people stories.
Sure.
And it just kind of went from there.
Sure. Well, so that's in 23, 22 and 23.
22. Yeah, 22, 20. Well, she was born in May of 22. So it was probably about 23 that it started.
Okay.
That I got enough energy to want to be social with other people again.
So you're 2.5 years into this.
Mm-hmm.
Basically.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So I was wondering how long you total, because you've got some stuff on YouTube, you've got some stuff here and there. I didn't really know how long you've been at it in total. So what was your first, what you would call true crime case? And what did that look like? You don't have to tell the whole story, but and you might point out if people want to follow up where they can find it.
Yeah. I think, I was working in a few missing people cases because they were a mystery into like the legends and the folklore stories, especially like older cold cases. And I think the very first one I did might have been Bobo Shin in Magnolia, Arkansas. And I think that video, I actually think I made a YouTube video on that one too.
I think I've seen that, yes.
Yes. And I think I did one on TikTok. And then I also picked up Maud Crawford, which is another missing lady in Arkansas. And she was from Look, I've done blanked. I don't know where she was from
That's
off the top
okay.
of my head. Yeah, but it was Maud Crawford in, goodness, how am I going to blank like that? Anyway, it was
I'll
Maud.
remember it in just a few minutes. Just
Yeah,
tell
I will
the
randomly.
story and you'll
Yep. That's usually the way it works too. My mind will blank and then all of a sudden I'll remember it. But yeah, so it was a few missing person cases, but I really think it was, and well, I also told like the axe murder house in Indiana, Iowa, one of the I states for sure.
Okay.
And it was like a haunted story, but it was a really horrific crime that happened beforehand. And I did realize pretty early on that a lot of the ghost stories have a historical event attached to it or a actual crime case,
Was the
which has actually been fun to explore of like what came first, the ghost
Sure.
or the crime.
Well, was the Axe haunted house, was that first of all, it's out of state, so it was a little bit out of your territory. Did you go outside of the area quite a bit, or did you mainly stay here? But then is that a legit is that a folklore or is that a legit
No, that was a real
murder?
crime. Yeah. That was at the I don't know how to say it's like Versailles or something. But yeah, that was a real crime and it was a really bad one. And I didn't start so I started out with just Arkansas stories. And then I moved to Arkansas and Missouri.
Okay.
But then because I was just doing oddities, the legends and whatever, I would actually do all the states and I would just randomly pick from one. Like I have a running list of different stories from all 50 states. But then when
Okay,
it came to
so what's your favorite out of all 50 states?
all 50 states,
What's
favorite
the one? And yeah, give us the gist of it. Yeah.
oh, that's a good question. I really don't know. I don't know what I would say my favorite story is. I like a lot of different ones. I really enjoy the cryptid legends,
Okay.
like the monsters, the
Yeah.
monsters that lurk in the woods. Those are always really fun to me because a lot of them hook into much older folklores, which is always
True.
interesting.
That's true. That's
Yes.
true. Those
And so I like
those
those.
legends came here a lot with the very early settlers.
Absolutely. I know in Colorado, one of my favorite stories there was the Tommy knockers, the little people that lived in the mines and would knock on the mine walls. And it seemed like every major mine had their own Tommy knocker story, which I found fascinating. So I really liked that one. There's been a few I really like. I liked the Dark Watchers in California, which was there's this certain stretch along the West Coast, and it's this very scenic road, but it's through the mountains. And people would report seeing these tall, dark, like shadow figures on the ridges, just staring at them and watching. And they say they've been there forever, and they just call them the Dark Watchers.
Wow.
And I just thought that was fascinating.
Now I want to go drive that highway.
Me too. I want to see a Dark Watcher.
Yeah. Heck yeah.
And I really, like I said, I really like I really like the history stories too. So I really like the alien crash stories. Like there was one in Cape Girardeau. There was one in Aurora, Texas. And those were all pretty close together. So that was an interesting little series that I ran through too.
If you don't mind, unpack the Cape Girardeau one a little bit if you can from memory.
It's been a while since I covered it, so I
I
will
want
not
to put
have
you
all
on
the
the spot
details.
because you
Yeah.
have let's just say you have a huge volume of material.
Yes, yes. And I do a lot of,
Not like there's just 10 videos we're talking about here.
yeah, like I've put out quite a few at this point
Yeah.
for sure. And there's a few of those that, well, most of them that I do dig really deeply into,
Mm,
but I cannot recall the dates and stuff off the top of my
Sure.
head later.
Sure.
But this one happened outside the Cape Girardeau airport.
Okay.
And there was like a big field then. And this was in the 40s, I want to say, because they actually say that it was that crash that started the United States government's crash retrieval projects.
Oh, kidding.
Yep, it was Cape Girardeau where that happened. And they said that when they got to the scene of the crash, there was clearly something had impacted. There was debris everywhere, but they found a living creature inside the ship that was still there. And they ran and got a priest from the town, and he came and gave the last rites to this alien right before the alien died. And then the government swooped in and they took everything away.
Whoa.
Yep. And that was pretty much the gist of that. But it was just really fascinating because it was so documented.
Well,
Like, this definitely happened.
Amber Vance wins the unplanned, blown away story. I thought I knew pretty well everything that had, around. That's a new one on me. Completely a new one. Wow.
Oh, you should look into that. It's fascinating.
Yeah, I'll have to check. And I hadn't checked that out when that went out on your videos. I guess I just hadn't found it yet. So
well, what's funny, if you go look at that one, I said Cape Girardeau completely wrong because I had no idea how to say that at the time. And a lot of people made fun of me. So just know that I pronounced that wrong throughout the entire video.
Well, I know a fella that travels every day from El Dorado Springs to Versailles.
But it's Versailles.
Yeah.
That's the axe murder house.
Versailles, Versailles, if you're talking about Louis, this palace in France, but Versailles, if you're talking in south in central Missouri.
Yeah, I bet that is what it is.
I'm sure there's another name of Versailles. Another town's named Versailles. So you were doing all of these just oddities around the country and all these different states, and then what? Because I'm going to ask this because I'm curious for one, but what's the first historic crime? Have you gone in and gone through one that's like over 100 years old and tried to present it, or older ones, or have you mainly tried to stick more recent?
I'll do as old as they get. I have done a lot of history stories. I can't really say it was like a crime case per se. Like, I remember doing a story on a guy named Big Nose George in Wyoming. Yeah,
Big Nose George Parrot.
He was, yes, and he was made into shoes.
Yeah, and they cut up his skull and made an ashtray out of it.
Yes.
Big Nose George Parrot. Thank you,
Yep.
Time Life books from the 80s.
Yeah. Yes, I loved that story. I got obsessed with the shoes, and I was really sad to find out that they do not have them on display anymore. They will not let you see the shoes.
Well,
I can kind of see why. I mean, it is skin.
I'm trying to find a really good shoe, come back, and I don't have it. I guess there's no soul to the place.
Right, there's no soul to it.
Anyway, yeah.
But yeah, those are like the history stories. But I think what you mean is like my investigations, like my crime investigations.
I know that I have a couple of local crimes, well, several that I think were basically forgotten. We put the background to, and that's I've also looked at some stuff that's more recent, and I think that's also why we're talking here today. But now I would say you're mainly doing true crime is the bulk of your content.
Yep, I've gotten kind of stuck on it. And actually, it was the Cassidy Rainwater case that I think really pushed me over into more of the true crime stuff. Because I'll be honest, it's a funny thing about my personality, but I'm not a true crimer. I do not watch crime for fun. It freaks me out. I get scared. I get the heebie-jeebies.
Yeah.
Really bad, which is crazy that I talk about all these scary things, but it's like I'm using a different part of my brain when I'm working on something than when I'm just consuming it.
Yeah. I see what
so like just listening to it, I would get the heebie-jeebies bad, like we're sleeping with all the house lights on tonight. Absolutely not. But if I'm working on something, I can stomach all kinds of things and sail right past it. So it is weird the way that difference is.
I think there's something to that. I think there's something to that because, also if you watch Dateline, let's just say, it becomes after about 10 episodes pretty formulaic. I mean, unless you really have some attachment to the story involved, it's just a formula.
Yes.
And I get that. It's easy to produce. But then you inside the formula, you're just sort of giving yourself ghastly pictures. You're not
Right.
you as a consumer, you're not really, your brain is engaged no matter how hard they try to stump you as to what's actually going to happen, which never really works, in my opinion.
Mhm.
So that's very interesting. So you like trying to solve the puzzle and put all the pieces together.
And I think it's a part that kicks in my, I don't know, like a protective instinct almost of like, I don't, like if I'm working on something, then in my mind, I'm doing it to help. And there's nothing I wouldn't do to help somebody. But if I'm just consuming it for fun, well, now I'm just scaring myself for no reason, so
Sure.
it's a little different. But I know a lot of people that, I mean, one of my best friends is very much a true crime girl, and she will listen to serial killer stories to like relax to go to sleep. And I'm like, girl, I, I'm scared,
I know.
So it's kind of weird the way I wandered into it. But originally, what pushed me to Wendyville was somebody was said something about, oh no, so I was making these silly videos. I don't know if you've noticed them, but it was just a way to pass time while I was working on researching whatever story was coming up.
Oh, you made
But
some shorts and some stuff.
yeah, I would like pick a random town and then drop into it on Google Maps and then kind of wander around a few streets and decide if I thought it was haunted or not. It was just like a fun, like, this
Yeah.
is to be silly. And completely at random, I dropped into Wendyville, Missouri.
Oh boy.
Yeah. And the comment section went crazy. And I declared it super haunted because I was like, what is this little abandoned town? And it's got to be haunted.
I saw it out of context. I saw that one after you were like, maybe had released the third part or the last part
Mhm.
of the Wendyville one. It was this last April. I remember.
Mm.
Because I listened to you as I was going back, and that was part of Holy Week. I was listening to Amber Vance driving back and forth to church, probably.
Talking about
Probably
cannabis.
gonna have to confess that at some point. But anyway,
Right.
yeah. So, and I was like, then you make this video, and I'm like, what?
Right. Confused.
It came first. Okay.
It came first. Yeah.
Oh.
And so that was what drew my attention to like, well, what's going on in Wendyville? Why is the comment section going crazy right now? Because they're like, who's going to tell her about Wendyville? So I walked into it thinking that I was like, okay, my next story will be about Wendyville because I want to know what people are talking about right here.
Sure.
So I start looking into that thinking I'm just going to find a couple spooky stories. And no, what I found was the Cassidy Rainwater case.
Which was
And
at that point, how long had that been resolved? Because they were
well,
already in jail. I mean, they were
yes, they were.
in
Yeah.
prison.
Yeah, that actually happened in July of 2021. So this would have
Okay,
been,
yeah. Okay, so it has been a while. It's been longer.
it had been a while.
Okay,
Yes, yes. It had been enough time that it had already like hit the public eye. It really went crazy and then it had gone quiet again. So when I ran into it, nobody was really talking about that story anymore.
yeah, it was already gone. I remember
Yes.
when it hit and the rumors that were going through social media and between people about maybe there's 2-3 dozen victims there.
Yes.
The gist of the rumors, the FBI's cordoned it off and done this and this and this. And then I didn't hear it. Then they all came out and said, everybody needs to quiet down. This isn't true. We're trying to track down witnesses. You're just making a bunch of trouble, which generally I kind of get,
It does happen.
small town. You don't need a bunch of, same thing as you don't need a bunch of rubberneckers where somebody's house is burning down.
Exactly. Yeah.
Same type of deal in at least in my mind. And so I just like, oh, okay, yeah, that just shows you how people can get carried away. And then I find your stuff and I'm like, oh, that's probably not true. And then I'm like, I don't know, I was cooking or something. And I'm like, okay, fine, I'll give it a listen. And I mean, I don't have your source list, but I mean, you have a lot of firsthand sources in there, and it's kind of hard to argue with.
Right.
So you don't have to really you can take us through whatever amount of the story you'd like to, but when you hit on that, what did that process look like investigating that?
So I think originally the first video I made after I decided that I was going to work on that, I found the story. I was horrified, but then I was like, there's more to it. I know there has to be more to it, because I also did start catching the like little statements from the police, like you kind of mentioned about them being like, y'all pipe down.
Yeah.
You know, like, and the Dallas County Sheriff Rice at the time, he had put out a statement that I think just really rubbed me the wrong way about don't listen to TikTokers who are drinking boxed wine and eating Cheetos in their mama's basement or something. I'm like, what? Because I will tell you that something that I've noticed over time, and I think I've always clocked it, is that if they put too much pressure out on making everybody quit talking about something, then there's something to hide. Because yeah, I agree completely that there is a point where you're like, okay, guys, back up. You know, like, don't stare at the burning house. We don't need y'all rubbernecking this wreck or whatever. But there's also a point where they take it too far into the like, everyone be quiet immediately. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, no, y'all got me suspicious now. Why do you want everybody to quit talking? So I made a video.
I mean, at least eventually, if they're keeping it quiet, there's going to have to be a prosecution, and then it should all come out.
Absolutely.
But it doesn't even look like.
It doesn't.
Don't even have the benefit of that here,
No.
as I understand it. So
no, they were still very secretive, even when it was resolved. And, you know, when the case was closed, they were still super secretive. And that's another thing that usually will catch my attention of like, why are y'all still being so weird about it? Y'all aren't just weird about other cases.
You know, is it an ongoing investigation to the point?
And actually it is. To this day, Wendyville is an ongoing investigation, supposedly. That's why they don't have to release anything, because the FBI has it listed as an open investigation, which means we may never know what really happened there or like what all they were able to prove, which is unfortunate. But yeah, I made a video basically getting on and being like, hey, Missouri, I need your help. I want to know what y'all know, because I'm also one of those that a lot of the local stories, which that's what I really love, is a good local story. I want to hear it from the locals. You know, I don't want to hear it from the internet or from the, you know, fifth hand account that got put into a book. I want to hear it like, sure. What's the story you know? And I was so stunned at the amount of people that just came pouring out willing to talk to me about this. And so I spent a few months just on the phone, like making contact with people all across the southern half of Missouri. And yeah, there was a lot of people that was really sitting on some stuff with that one. And I think it just blew my mind. It was also fascinating to me that, as you probably well know, the cannibal legends have been in the Ozarks since forever. Like, I feel like it's almost a stereotype about, you know, watch out for the banjos and the cannibals in the Ozarks.
Randolph records the famous tale, Pennywinkle, Pennywinkle, my brother killed me, my ma cooked me, my pa hit me, hit me. I want my heart and lights and Winnie pipes, Pennywinkle, Pennywinkle. The classic Ozark cook the baby story, which is like something out of Grimm's fairy tales.
Right. And those stories have been around forever. And I guess in my brain, it was always folklore. It was always like that city people trying to make mountain people look bad.
Yeah.
You know, so, but then I was like, oh my God, that's a real cannibal. These are real cannibals here. And then there's also there's that aspect to that case, which I'm not going to super break down because, you know, I went into it extensively.
Is it a 3 or 4 part? You've got like, I
think on YouTube, it's a 3-part.
40 minutes, roughly 30 to 40 minutes each part. And it goes through. I encourage everyone to go listen through that if you're interested in this case.
Yes.
She does take you through it step by step.
Yes, it's interesting. But it was that case and the really the probability, not the possibility of other victims, that made me look around. And I got very, I think, attached to that case because I just felt like I didn't like the way it was being quieted. I didn't like the way that there was the weirdness around it, and I felt like more should have been done for Cassidy. And that really bothered me. You know, like this girl, what happened to her is unimaginable. And it blew my mind that I hadn't heard about it before. But the possibility of the other victims had me looking around at missing person cases. Like, who else is missing around here? You know, let's see if anybody fits the bill of when these guys were, you know, in these locations. And that's when I realized just the sheer amount of missing people.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think I knew there were a lot, but I'd never looked at it with my own eyes and realized just how many they are. Thousands.
Well,
just across Missouri and Arkansas.
Well, and the sheer amount of missing adults with mental problems.
Yes. And missing kids. And a lot of them are young women that go missing.
Yes.
And it would just... Horrifying. Absolutely. And what really actually caught my attention was I looked around and I found what I consider still to be my original cluster of women. And you can kind of see them up here on the board behind me. But
for those of you, this is an audio. Amber, we'll try to get a snapshot or a selfie of you in front of your board for the when we publish this. So, but Amber's got 2 cork boards, and she's got just pictures of women who've gone missing, and then some famous cases and some news articles behind her too. So we'll try to get a picture of that up. Anyway, continue.
I completely forgot that they could not see the board.
Yeah,
I'm glad you said that. But yeah, up here I do have my original cluster, which was a group of women that all went missing in relatively close proximity to each other, all between 1991 and 1992. And that was the Springfield 3. You know, Springfield's 3 missing women. It was Cheryl Kinney, Trudy Darby, and Angela Hammond. And I went, no, that's too many. That's too many, too close together.
Mm-hmm.
And
all in 1992?
All between February 1991 and June 1992.
Yeah.
You know, I'm like, that's too many. No, absolutely not. And I think that just, I don't know, it flicked on a portion of my brain that was like, this does not sit right with me. And if I don't hear anybody else talking about it, so I'm going to talk about it. And I think that's what really started it.
Where were these women? What's the connecting factor? Were they all from a certain area, or did they all last seen around us? So the ones that you're connected with Windyville or maybe another area, what do they have in common?
Well, like the group I just talked about, I don't think, well, I can't say I don't think they're connected to Windyville. I mean, they could be because there are some things.
Okay, well, forget Windyville. What's the profile of these women?
Those group was that one, they all went missing at the same time. And like I said, in relatively close proximity. Okay. So the 3 missing women was Springfield, Missouri. Mm-hmm. Trudy went missing from Max Creek. And Angela from Clinton, and look, I'm having to look behind me. Cheryl from Nevada, Missouri. So they're kind of spread out, but not really. But Trudy and Cheryl Kinney went missing the exact same way. They were both abducted from gas stations. And actually those happened, I think, only like a month apart, like back to back. Trudy ended up being found. She was found in the river. She had been shot, and there were 2 men that were arrested for that. I suspect those same 2 men are also responsible for Cheryl Kinney because it's the exact same MO, the exact same everything. And there's also jailhouse letters that support that, but apparently no one's forced any answers out of them, and one of the guys has passed away since then. But
were they convicted of it or tried for it? Or
mm-hmm. Yes, they were convicted of it. It was Jess Rush and Marvin Cheney. And they were half brothers. Marvin passed away in prison. And Jess Rush, and they were both really young when this happened. Like Jess Rush, I think, was only like a teenager. But he did it. You know, like there's not a question of their guilt. And they kidnapped Trudy and took her to a barn and did really terrible things to her. And then, took her, put her in the trunk of a car, shot her, and threw her in the river. And the absolute cruelty of that just got me. But knowing that Cheryl Kinney, in my mind, I really truly believe that she was taken by the same people. And she's never been found. And the idea of these women never being found does not sit right with me. Like, it's already bad enough that something horrific happened to them. But what do you mean they're just lost?
Yeah.
I guess because I'm such a homebody, I'm like, I can't imagine anything worse than never going home.
Well,
So
you
it
know,
bothered me.
recently we recounted the case of Kellyanne Workman, which is
Yes.
really just a few miles from where I'm coming from right now, south of here.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, in 1989, she was taken, she was raped, and she was murdered.
Yes.
Jackie
I'm familiar with Kelly.
Johns,
Jackie Johns. Yep. I've
Jackie
covered.
Johns, same time period. I mean, these are a
Yes.
few years before you're talking
Mm-hmm.
about,
Mm-hmm.
but same situation. And then it just seemed like by the time I went to college, that it was just an accepted fact that this happened. It was it was common. It was common in the up until the mid 90s, and then everybody started carrying pistols, and it stopped.
It just stopped for a minute.
Slowed down anyway.
Yes, yes.
No, I don't. I'm just making that in jest. I don't know that that's the case, but
No, it did. There was a weird pause in like the very late 90s in the cases. That is something that I don't run into many 1999 cases. I mean, there are a few, but not as many as the early 90s. And then there's a resurgence in like the early 2000s. But there was like a quiet few years there, and I don't know why.
yeah, you have some, yeah, and yeah, I just remember at the time thinking, well, when we were going through that Kellyanne case, it's sort of like my big question on like the Cassidy Rainwater case is like, you're a couple of hooligans driving around, and all of a sudden in your mind, you've decided that we'll just take and rape and
Right.
kill this girl, or we will do all that and then butcher, not to
Right.
use not just to put it as literally as you can, this person and share and sell the meat.
Yeah, yes. And that's
How do you, I mean, how do you get to that place?
I cannot wrap my head around that. And I will say the meat market thing with the Cassidy Rainwater case, I found out is way too real. And that really threw me for a loop too. I feel like I learned a lot about the world, really, by exploring these cases of realizing that things that I was like, surely not.
Probably a lot more.
Was like, yeah. Yeah, more than I wanted to, I think. But I think it also just like opened my eyes to there's a lot out here that should be talked about that I don't always hear talked about. And I think that's kind of what pushed me away from the ghost stories and stuff, which I still love. I love a good spooky story. I love legends, all of that stuff. But to me, I think I was like, I'm doing the same amount of work because I can't help but to like try to dig up whatever I can.
Sure.
But I'm like, but if I focus on these, I could actually help somebody. You know, like maybe it'll be worth something. It's not just a story. It's something real, something that matters.
Well, I think everybody, going back to the Kellyanne Workman case, I think everybody had pretty well given up that would ever break.
Yes.
And it did. 36 years later. I mean,
better late than never.
35 years later, I think.
Yeah. Better late than never.
Well, yeah. And so that the advocacy portion of this, I think, goes without saying. What is that the spookiest situation you've been in with any of these that you've done, or
yes, I definitely think
threats from anyone, or
well, I will say Wendyville had to be the spookiest. Like I think I kept a couple months long like sense of impending doom, walking around with me because it was just so hard for me to accept. And I also realized that I was touching on something that everyone kept telling me, like, watch your step, watch your step, watch your step.
Sure.
So I actually expected more threats than I got because I actually haven't received any direct threats. Now, I recently did the big series on the Springfield 3, which is probably the case I'm most emotionally involved in myself. Like I'm very attached to that one for some reason. And I think it's just because it's so complicated. Like so
Mhm.
I don't even know how to explain it. Like it's a heck of a puzzle.
There's nothing about it that's normal. There's nothing.
Yeah, nothing.
That's the you know the police dropped the ball.
Yes.
People who came there to check on them, meaning no intent, hindered the investigation.
Yes.
You know,
And
the timeline hindered the investigation.
absolutely.
And then ever cuckoo in the country calling in because they think they know about it. That hinders the investigation.
Mm-hmm.
I was here. I was in high school when that happened. Not in Springfield, but in the area.
Yeah.
And it was everywhere.
Oh yeah, the
It
yellow
scared the
flaggers.
crap out of everybody. Yeah.
Yeah. Because how do 3 people disappear without a trace? How? And I also always had the sneaking suspicion. So one thing
You have
that
to
I've
go
noticed,
willingly.
yes. And one thing I've noticed about Ozarks crime, which I haven't, and maybe it's because I'm not as familiar with other areas in the country. It might be like this everywhere, maybe a lot of other places. I don't know. But I have found that there is an odd level of seemingly connectiveness within some of the crimes in the Ozark. Like they have similar patterns. They have similar things that you're like, wait a minute. There might be something more to this, or this might connect to, this person or this person or this person that has similar things. Kind of like you mentioned Jackie Johns. Well, she was from Nixa. There was a lady, her name was Carol. Yes, Carol Blades. Her name was Carol Blades. And pretty much the exact same thing that happened to Jackie happened to Carol. Her car was found abandoned on the side of the road. Carol was eventually found, but it's still considered unsolved because they never found out who did it.
I remember.
But
yeah,
like very so cut and paste the same that I was like, there's no way. Both in Nixa, there's no way. So it was things like that that got me even more like tied in with it because I'm like, I cannot let it go at this point. Like there's so much strangeness.
Sure. And it, when you talk about the Springfield 3, one of the things you do in your videos that I like, because it's very similar to what I try to do on this podcast, is at this point, there's a lot of legends. There's a lot more legends than there are truly facts.
Mm-hmm.
And you do your best to point those out, not in any way that entirely is derogatory toward any one person or place or thing, but in general, you do point those out and do a good job of it, because that's always sort of been the parlor game when you come up with this, is the hide the thimble of where they are now, or under what they are now. And
yes.
And that's they've been playing that game since I was in college. That's the first time I'd ever heard that they might be under one thing or the other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there's so many different places that's been said over the years.
Yeah, and how many people? I think probably half of that you can cut off, but you don't know which half.
Right. So I do try to, when I'm doing stuff like this, like I have a saying, I guess a little motto I stick to about is listen to everyone, but blindly believe nothing. But I want to hear everything. I want to hear the rumors.
Yeah.
I want to hear the stories that you're like, there's no way this is true, but I've heard it a bunch of times. Tell me. Like I want to read all the things. But then I try to go behind that and look up like, what is their actual documentation behind? What can we prove and what is unprovable? And I do try to point out the things that's like, this is word of mouth. This is just, there's no, credible documentation behind it for me to say it's a fact. But I still think it should be included because of this reason or another. Because I know some people don't think that anything that is not officially documented isn't, that important, but I disagree with that. I think there's a lot of value in groomers.
When I was in high school, the first lesson in geometry was they hand you like 3 different rulers and they say measure an inch, and they're all different.
Mm-hmm.
And the point is the measuring device is really only as good as it's manufactured or as the person who's using it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I feel about some of this. What is proof and what is not is depends on whose standards you're trying to meet.
Right.
Because we can all sit here and we can all find cases that law enforcement skipped over and messed up, and then were ultimately solved, and we know it later. It's not a dig on law enforcement. They're just human. They're dealing with
Absolutely.
My God, that's a complex case.
Yes.
I've always
I think they did their best, or what they thought was right. I do think that.
Yeah.
Especially at the beginning. I do think they did their best.
Yeah.
I think they just thought it was going to be, I don't think they were prepared for the magnitude of that case.
No, I don't think they were. There is a definite Springfield before that and Springfield after that vibe. Just true. As someone who's lived in the area their whole life, I've always maintained that for whatever reason, someone wanted to take them and do something to them. And I think you've probably got a 50-50 shot of random nut job, maybe they're a serial killer, maybe they're not, who knows?
Right.
Versus something more structured. I find that a lot. First of all, people can't keep quiet. I mean, the full weight of the federal government couldn't keep people from talking about the Kennedy assassination. They killed them all. But you're not going to keep that quiet. You're not going to keep a conspiracy going between this and this and this. This is just my opinion. Everybody's entitled to their own. But I just find it hard to really swallow that if you're running a big drug operation or a black market operation or whatever you're doing, that you would have that this would be a good thing.
Right.
Just call attention to something else.
Right.
And how much money would somebody have to owe of you for you to grease 3 people?
Right. And my thing too is 3 people, you're really risking the chance of getting caught with that. 3 people,
they didn't kill him in the house. They didn't kill him in the house. They didn't.
Nope.
And your last one that you had in part 3, the last part of it on YouTube, I believe, where the guy confessed to it, is intriguing, and he also sort of left a puzzle.
He did, yes.
So
you're talking about Larry Hall?
Yeah. I would really like. Can you hear that cat? I've got to go let the cat in. But
no, I didn't.
Okay, it's driving me nuts. I'll go let it in here in a second. But if you don't mind, for the listeners, unpack the clue he gave. And I've been meaning to ask you this, or call you and ask you this even ahead of the podcast, is he gave a clue as to maybe where they were. Or was it where...
Are you talking about the Branson note?
No, the thing on the other side of Springfield. Like the house out by the coal plant?
Oh, yeah. So oh, okay. I thought you were talking about Larry Hall, the
I maybe have the name wrong.
No, okay. No, I was, because there were two confessions. I was thinking he meant Larry Hall, the suspected serial killer that confessed and then took it back. You mean the unknown caller?
Take us through both of them.
Okay.
I'm going to let the cat in. Take us through both. Start with Larry Hall, because I was going to go there next. So that I'm brought up. Go ahead and do that, and then we'll go to the guy that called in.
Okay, yeah. Larry Hall was a twin. Him and his brother Gary were born in Indiana, and they had kind of a strange life. they're both kind of strange kids. And Larry had some developmental difficulties. He had some developmental delays, and his brother later made it sound like Gary, the main twin or the older twin, was the normal twin and Larry was the evil twin, which I don't really think that's quite the way it went down, but that's a very complicated story. But Larry Hall ended up getting arrested after abducting a 14 or 15-year-old girl. Her name was Jessica Roach. And he was caught for that. And when they brought him in, okay, so when I say he was caught for that, he was caught in his van that had some evidence. That's a very complicated story, to be honest, but we'll just say he did it. He gets arrested. They take him in, they interrogate him, but they interrogate this guy who already has some mental delays, like mental issues. The way that they worded it is that he was very prone to manipulation, very prone to suggestion. It wasn't very difficult to convince him to say things back to you. And they kept him in that interrogation room for so long that this man got increasingly like agitated and upset. He didn't understand what they wanted. So when he finally confessed, they asked him, like, why did you confess? And he's like, I don't know. I just wanted to make the investigators happy. I didn't know what they expected of me. So I just said what they wanted me to say. Well, Larry ended up confessing to like 30 crimes over time, more than that probably. Yeah. But then he recanted all of them. Then he said he was coerced, and it's just gone back and forth. So I don't think anyone really still knows what all Larry Hall, and in my opinion, Larry and Gary Hall, because it was not just Larry, but they don't actually know what all they could have done. But one of the cases that he confessed to during his confession, his strings of confessions, was the Springfield Three. And it turned out that Larry and Gary, they were big into those historical Civil War reenactments where they dress up and do the whole thing. And there was one taking place the weekend that the three women disappeared over at Pleasant Hope. That's what it was. And so they were relatively close, and there were some other things that could possibly, I think, it's a little concerning about their presence in Springfield at the same time. I still consider him probably the least likely of all the suspects, but I can't rule him out either. So that's the guy I thought you were talking about because he confessed.
No,
but
well,
the other one, the unknown caller, is the intriguing one.
Didn't he also confess to things that have been subsequently solved, though?
Larry or the unknown caller?
Larry.
Yes.
Like he may have confessed, I'm going off memory here, confessed to like Jackie Johns or something.
It wasn't Jackie Johns, but he did confess to a lot. I think the only people in Missouri he named was the Springfield Three.
Okay. I'm thinking.
But he confessed.
Never mind.
Pretty much every case, they were like, hey, did you kill these people? He would be like, yep. So,
sure.
He's like, will it make you happy if I say yes? And they're like, yeah. And he's like, then yes.
Huh.
He's very simple. You can really tell. Larry Hall is a very simple person. But it is concerning, especially if you put the two together. There was some activities there. It is true that everywhere they went, missing girls showed up directly after. There's some real concerns there. But the unknown caller, though, that blew my mind when I ran across it. And I really do think that is a really underrated piece of the Springfield 3 puzzle.
So take us through this is the one that caught my eye, and I was like, okay, there's a way to verify a place potentially. So
yes.
Unpack that for us, if you would, please.
Okay. I knew about this caller before I actually got a hold of the full transcript, because I spoke to a guy who had it, and he was like, listen, I'm going to send you some of this, but don't post it. And he's like, this is for you. Do not share it publicly because it's dangerous to have. And I was like, got it. So I sat on it for a while before I decided, like, how bad could it be? Well, turns out this caller called into the KTTS radio station in, look, I got it right here, 2004. Wait. 2003. And
Who was the host? Who was the host?
Nancy Simpson.
Yep.
Nancy Simpson.
Yeah.
Yes. And she was an investigative reporter in Springfield, and I love Nancy. I speak to her pretty often these days. But yeah, she answered the phone, and obviously she was not expecting that call. So Nancy later ended up sending me the full transcript. And that's when I took it to the internet, where I was like, you know what? Maybe it's time we talk about it, because everybody kept telling me a lot of things about the Springfield 3, like, don't talk about this, it's dangerous. Don't talk about this, it's dangerous. Don't talk about this, it's dangerous. And I'm like, well, if I listen to everything y'all keep telling me, then no one would ever talk about any of it. And maybe that's why it hasn't been solved. So let's talk about it. But the caller called in, and he just said some very, very strange things and was pretty much confessing to the crime. Yeah, saying he drove the green van, that he abducted the women because of a drug debt. And in his storyline, he said it was Cheryl that owed him money, and that the girls that they weren't supposed to be there. They were like collateral damage. That then they drove them to another place where they killed Cheryl and then the two girls later. And that ended up coinciding with the story of the two boys at Camp Winoka, who witnessed the night of June 6th. They didn't tell anybody, I guess, for a really long time, but witnessed somebody in a green van pull up near the camp that they were, it's said to be haunted. So him and a friend were out there just doing what teenage boys do, trying to scare themselves silly in the woods. And instead of finding a ghost, they found a green van. Yeah.
Our last episode was Hain't Neither, which was Ozark Ghost Stories and Urban Legends.
Mm-hmm.
And the legend of Winoka Lodge. Winoka Lodge was a hunting and fishing lodge along the James River that was owned by a prominent family in Springfield.
Okay.
It was not where Girl Scouts were murdered. That actually happened in Locust Grove, Oklahoma, I believe.
Yes.
And
it did.
That legend pops up all over the country.
Yes.
And those kids were out there doing what two generations of kids have done who've heard this story. They're wanting to see the ghost.
Yes, absolutely.
Lodge. Or
absolutely.
Where the girls were murdered, which is just not true at all.
Right. It could be, it's a stretch, but I just thought that was so interesting that.
No, I'm not saying the other part is. I'm just saying the
Girl Scout
there's a whole other ghost story behind it that's kind of funny, and it's not really even a legitimate ghost story. But then these guys are out there, like all these other kids have done, to go out there and find it, and then they witness basically
a real crime.
Yeah.
Yes. And it makes me really sad, actually, what these boys witnessed, whatever it may be, whether it was the three missing women or something else entirely. But I do believe them, because the second boy that was with him ended up committing suicide just the following year. And he told his family that he witnessed something that he couldn't live with. And one of the last things he told them was that the three missing women were never coming home. And that, I can't imagine, like the way he describes it is they were scared shitless, just kind of hiding in the tall grass, waiting for these people to leave. And he said it was the sounds, that they could not get the sounds of these women screaming out of their minds. And I'm like, yes, traumatic.
So let's go back to the caller.
Mm-hmm.
So the caller says there's a house in Springfield.
He talks about his house. Yes. He says that he once lived in Brookline, which is, now I'm not as familiar with this.
Brookline was a little town that just grew up into a suburbia.
But is it like pretty much on the way to?
It's on the edge of Springfield. It's like Battlefield.
Okay, yeah, by Battlefield. That's what I was thinking.
The town has grown to meet them.
I gotcha. Yeah. Well, he said he lived in Brookline before the power plant came in. And that when the power plant came in the 70s, that they moved his house to make room for the power plant. And that he gives this, like, it's within a 5-mile radius is one of the hints he gave. It's within a 5-mile radius of the power plant. And that He gave a couple others too, and he even gave specific directions towards where he said at least one of the women were buried. I think is actually the directions to where he said the two younger girls were buried. But he gave specific directions that takes you right over there by Hood's truck stop and right over there towards the power plant, which is pretty interesting.
I almost think that unless it's just complete bullshit that he's spewing, that would be solvable.
I would think so. I do know that this guy, one of the things
I don't know how, but it would have to be.
I do think that he altered some details. So one of the things that he told Nancy was that he didn't feel any remorse for it, but he was calling to let someone know because his brother died and that he was very upset when his brother died. And he mentioned that his brother had died like recently to when he was calling, and that it was really hard for him. And his mom had made a statement about how that's how the girls' families feel. And that the least that you could do was, tell somebody where they are. And that's why he was doing it for his mom, because his mom gave him a guilt trip. And because he realized that when his brother died, that's probably the way they felt. So that's the only reason he was calling. I do think that he falsified some of those details because otherwise he would have made it way too easy to figure out who this person was. And I think some of his details are absolutely true, but I think others are wrong. And he threw them in there on purpose to throw off them being able to catch him before he got back out of the country. Because she told him on air, I'm going to call the police. And he's like, I know, I don't care. So I'm like, yeah, he had some safety net there. He gave us some wrong details, I think, just to throw off the trail on him.
That's just very interesting because
it is.
If a house gets moved and it gets moved to a new location, you may not know who owned the house before, but there'd be a record of who owned the land. Of course, they could have rented.
Yeah. Well, he said it would be on records. That's what he was telling Nancy. You should be able to pull these records and find me. You should be able to find my house easy. He says that a couple times about, it should be easy to find based on the directions I've given you.
Wow.
But Nancy called the police, and he also gave an inmate's name that connected to other people that were suspects in the case and told Nancy to go talk to this man that was in jail. And his name was Mark Batson, to go find Mark Batson in jail and talk to him. Well, Nancy, when she called the police, was like, hey, I want to talk to Mark Batson. And they told her, no, don't do it. And basically the sheriff, and he did it for her safety, not trying to cover something up, but he was like, listen, these are really dangerous people. And Nancy was young at the time. She was a young reporter. Mm-hmm. And, he's like, you're young and you're pretty. And basically, do you want to be a victim? Because quit playing with these things. So the police did go out and try to talk to him, though, but apparently that man refused to talk to them. But he also claimed that the unknown caller, whoever that may be, never called and told him to talk to anybody.
Wow.
So, and he did give some wrong details even about him. He told Nancy that Mark Batson was on death row. Mark Batson was not on death row. He was serving life in prison, but he wasn't on death row. So that's what I mean. There's a slight altering of details here and there.
Is it because it's an annoyance and they're convinced it won't be solved and they're just trying to get you out of the way, shoo you away, or is it?
I don't know. I really think in that particular case is that the sheriff at the time was not comfortable with Nancy going to the prison to try to talk to this man who committed, a very, very violent murders in the 80s. And I think they just felt like it was not safe for her. But they say that about.
But then who did go talk to him?
Some officer went and tried to, and he refused, apparently, is what they said.
Oh.
Who knows if that's true? Right. We both raise our hands huh?
Yeah.
Who knows if that's true?
It's kind of, that's something. Where do you, there's a few more things I want to kind of get into, and I know you've got a story to share before we go here, but where do you think this three missing women case, or maybe even the rainwater case, where do you think there's any future investigation or future, we're going to ever know the truth?
When it comes to the Wendyville case, I don't know. I think the feds will sit on that for a really long time. I think there's a very disturbing and very revealing truth in there that they're not ready to let the public know. I think that there's a lot of cases, similar cannibal type cases, where they've quickly shut it down because it's one of the things, like, if something really terrible happens, they don't want the public to panic.
Well,
I think it's also they have their motivations for lots of things,
sure.
to be honest, but I do think they're going to sit on Cassie Rainwater probably forever. We'll probably never hear what they have to say about it, and I actually cannot even request some of the files relating to that because it's still under investigation. FOIA request denied. Will not do
Or
it.
state.
Federal, yeah, because the federal's taken over all of it.
Oh, so it's all a federal investigation.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Through Laclede and Dallas counties.
Well, I think
Yes.
that you keep it up. That's noble of you to try to bring that to light, and they need to get off their ass and solve that if there's something to solve. I hate that.
I mean, I hate it too. I hate a lot of stuff like that. My hope is that they're secretly investigating the more national side of that, like the meat market thing and all that.
That's
Because
just it.
if the guys were selling the meat, it was going somewhere.
Which I'm of all the things I ever really expected to go over on this podcast, basically there was a network of people selling human flesh for consumption. I hope to God they're getting to the bottom of that, because
I
that's
hope so.
ridiculous. I mean, we can't put up
Yes.
with that. That's not.
No.
That's not. I mean,
That's not okay.
Love barbecue, but
Right, but that's
we
too
keep
much.
it to varmints that we raise and shoot.
Right. And when it comes to that, I really do hope that's what they're doing. That's why they're going to sit on that so tightly. Because what's even more disturbing about all that is most of that took place on the dark web. I've never accessed the dark web in my life, and I never
I
will.
don't want to either.
No, but you can pull up like human meat websites on the regular web.
Yeah,
And I was shook. Like, what do you mean? So I really hope they're getting to the bottom of that.
yeah.
But the Springfield 3, you're right. And
They-
who
Yeah.
is doing that kind of thing? Y'all making human like tacos, human hamburger helper? That's crazy.
It just goes back to my one thesis question when it comes to all these horrific things. At what point do you get up in the morning and you cross that line
Right.
and you say, by God, I'm just going to eat that bitch.
Right. Right.
I'm
I
tired of
think-
putting up with her.
I'm going to eat her.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Yes, and that's what they tried to say later, is that they were mad. They killed Cassidy because she stole some jewelry from them or something. Are you
Okay.
kidding me?
Yeah.
She took your favorite ring, so you're going to eat her for dinner? That's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, I just don't understand how you get it to that point where that's the acceptable course of action. I don't understand how you take three women
No, not at all.
home and assumedly murder them and then that's it too. I guess I can't go to that mental spot. Thankfully, I guess I can't.
Yes, and thank God we don't understand it. Absolutely.
But so
When it comes to the three missing women, though,
yeah, continue.
yeah, I really do hope to see that solved in my lifetime. I really do. I think there's a lot of people that still care deeply. That is a crime that haunts the city of Springfield. And I feel like anyone that runs across it, it's just, there's something very haunting about it. And in a weird way, I really do believe that sometimes spirits can't rest. People's souls cannot really rest until the truth is found, until they're found. And I think the three women are restless. I think that's why it haunts so many people. They want to be found. So I think that eventually they will be. Or at least an answer will be found to where they were destroyed, because there are methods that make remains unrecoverable.
Yeah.
I have hope for it anyway. I haven't given up on that one. I've finished up the series on YouTube, but I'm still working on a few different angles of it. And as you know, I'm able to.
There's going to continue to be leads coming in.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I got to tell you though, the creepiest part of that whole thing for me, and I'm not making light of the situation at all, but the creepiest part of your whole series was the silent screaming woman walking across the parking lot of a certain place.
At PFI, yes.
And that is whether she was drugged or a ghost or what that was.
Right. And that was a firsthand account from a individual I spoke to. And that was her question too, of like, what was it? Was she real or was she not real?
I had an image in my head and I was like, ugh.
Yes.
Amber, what'd you do to me? I mean,
I think even in the video, I was like, that's creepy. Like,
that's just weird. If you want to, I encourage everybody to be sure and hit the subscribe and like button for Amber Vance out there on YouTube or TikTok and Instagram, wherever, and follow up on that, and you'll know what we're talking about. Just how eerie the story.
It was a creepy little account. Yes, absolutely. A creepy experience for sure.
Yeah. Well, what's your we're kind of in the Halloween season. We had planned this podcast earlier and then scheduling problems arose, and so we're doing it more in the Halloween season, and you said, I've got a great story.
It's one of my personal, it's a simple one. It's a simple ghost story, but you know, I'm a fan of the just good, simple, spooky stories. And this was one that actually a guy asked me to look into a long time ago. And it's kind of in this vicinity. It takes place in Crocker, Missouri, which is
Missouri. I know where Crocker is. Yes.
Yeah. A little north of St. Robert and all that. And it's a place called Crybaby Hollow. And I love the Crybaby Bridge stories. There's a ton of them. They're all over the country, but I'm just very fond of them. I love just an old-fashioned ghost story. So yeah, Crybaby Hollow is a fun little story. And it says, the oldest version of the story, that just outside Crocker along Highway DD, there's an area known as Crybaby Hollow. And in the hollow, there's a bridge. And obviously that's the Crybaby Bridge. But there's different versions, but the oldest one says that once upon a time, there was a little family that lived not far from that highway. And one dark and stormy night, only the young mother and her child was at home. Her husband was away. And the mom noticed that her front door was standing open and her toddler was gone. So she runs out into the night, screaming frantically for him. And she can hear him crying in the distance. And the baby's crying and she's screaming. And then they both just disappear. Never seen again. So that's the original story. And I think there actually may be a little truth to that. There probably was a little settlement around that area, and there probably was a lost child or something, because that one was very enduring. But then there's a few variations of that. It says that there was a mother and a baby that were traveling in a wagon and it overturned. That one where the husband pushed his wife off a cliff while she was holding the baby because he didn't love her anymore. Then there was a woman who was desperate after her husband left her and drowned her baby and then herself. But either way, the bridge became haunted by this mother and this child. And people report hearing a woman screaming and the baby crying as they travel through Crybaby Hollow. And it said the crying seems to get louder as you cross that bridge and you get closer to a certain graveyard. And while the bridge seems to be the center point of the story, people also report seeing menacing red eyes staring out at them like from the woods. And some people think there's a portal to hell there. And that story does tend to go along with the red eyes.
Always lines everything up nicely. And by the way, we've also got a portal to hell.
Always, yes. But then people report the strange car trouble around the bridge. Their cars stop. The tire blows. You know, they'll stop to let's check the bridge out. When they get back in, the car won't start.
It's what I told my date, too.
That the car won't start?
Yeah.
So then...
I guess.
Have to stay here all night.
Yeah.
But some people report like scratches down the cars. Other people report scratches on them that they don't remember.
Wow.
But what I love about this particular Crybaby Bridge is that it says that this activity peaks between, hold on, I have this written down. I don't want to tell y'all wrong. Between 11:50 and 12:20 a.m. Exactly, between that 30-minute period. And if you go to the bridge within that 30-minute period and you lay a chocolate bar down on it, I was told specifically a Baby Ruth, but maybe any chocolate would work. But I was told the Baby Ruth. If you leave a Baby Ruth on the bridge, get back in your car, drive until the bridge is just out of sight, come back, that there will be a bite taken out of your candy bar. And I talked to a girl and I was like, that's fun or whatever. She's like, no, that's real. And I'm like, you're playing with me right now. You have to be. She's like, no, we've done it twice. And I'm like, what? So now I'm determined one day to go to Crocker, Missouri and lay a Baby Ruth bar on that bridge.
That sounds like a noble undertaking. If anyone out there in listener land knows of this legend or has experienced this, or I don't want to know about your brother-in-law's cousin's insurance agent's nephew.
Yeah.
I want to know about, then contact us, contact Amber Vance, or contact us at Wild and Woolly Ozarks.
Yes, please do.
And we'll have
I want to hear about y'all going.
Yeah. Yeah, yes. I want to hear more too, because that's a new Ozark ghost story to document. That's great.
I loved it. Yeah.
New to me anyway. New to me.
Yeah. Apparently the Crybaby Hollow is pretty well known. And like I said, there's Crybaby bridges everywhere, but that's different. And I loved that.
Yeah.
So I was like, yep, I'm fond of that story. And I actually never got around to telling it.
A baby crying is one of those ghostly themes, kind of like a wood chopping ghost or a woman in white or a phantom hitchhiker or
absolutely
something else. So
there's always the Crybaby bridges, the phantom hitchhikers. Yeah, like there's themes or categories of ghosts.
Well, Amber, what are your plans for the future? I don't think you've ran out of horrible things to document, unfortunately.
Unfortunately, I don't think I ever really will. I think I can keep doing it forever.
What are you looking at next? You got anything upcoming or any releases that you're going to be making on your various channels?
Well, right now on TikTok, I've really been working on the Idaho 4 case, which is the newest case, actually, that I've ever tried to take on.
Okay.
Typically, I prefer cold cases. I like cold cases much better because it tends to just be there's more information at your fingertips. But I think because I was so interested in it, they started releasing the documents on the Idaho 4, and it took up so much of my brain space that I was like, all right, I keep trying to work on other things, and I'm so interested in this that I'm like, I might as well just do this. So that's what I've been working on TikTok right now.
I haven't checked on that. Have you got YouTube and TikTok of that up?
On the Idaho 4, I've been working on TikTok, but I have not made one for YouTube yet. Okay. YouTube tends to get my more polished version after I make a whole bunch of short ones on TikTok, pretty much just flail it around like, this is what I found, you guys.
Yeah.
So the TikTok tends to get my more raw, as I'm working on it, where YouTube gets the more finished, this is what I was working on, but now I'm done.
Okay. I understand.
Yeah. And of course, I want to keep telling the ghost stories. I've been itching to tell some just good old fashioned ghost stories because they make me happy. I know they're spooky and scary, but they're oddly comforting too.
Well, if you want to have
real monsters,
if you want a forum for that, you're always welcome here because we love ghost stories. We're always searching for new people to tell us something. So, well, Amber, I want to thank you for joining us today. It's been a wild ride. It's been fun. And how folks can follow you on TikTok, on YouTube, Instagram.
I have an Instagram. Nothing on there. Okay. Yeah. Well, I am. You can find me, but there's absolutely nothing posted on there.
Right.
And I have a Facebook as well, but it's also bad about posting on. I forget I have a Facebook, but I do have one.
Yeah. It's we're just now getting the Instagram reels up and going, or whatever they call them on Instagram.
Right. I've never posted on Instagram. It's hard enough to juggle the few that I have. So
yeah. If folks have information on one of the crimes that we visited about today and want to reach out to you or reach out to you about a cold case or a missing woman in their area, how can they get a hold of you, Amber?
They can email me, and I would love to hear about any of that. My email is amber.bv, like Bowden Vance, 787 at gmail.com.
Thank you. And I will try to remember to put that in the comments as well. I want to thank Amber for visiting with us today. I also want to thank you, the listener, for your praise and support. It means a lot to us. It keeps us going. It keeps us bringing more programs like this to you. If you enjoyed this episode, hit the subscribe and like button. Follow us on this platform, as well as all platforms where you get your podcasts. Be sure to check us out on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook. Look for updates and extra content, like Halloween plans. Halloween plans, we have them. Follow us on social media for our ghost walk in lovely downtown Marshfield, Missouri, and other exciting offers as they come up. Upcoming episodes, I wanted to prime the pump here a little bit on this. A complete takedown of the cultural phenomenon of Ozark witchcraft. Now, if you expect me to put on green face and a black hat and fly around on a broom, you're going to be sorely disappointed. Not that I'm above it. It's just that's not what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about the reasons why a culture believes in magic and witchcraft, and where Ozark witchcraft, as outlined primarily by Vance Randolph and others, where that comes from. That's going to be great with our friend Justin Miner. That should release on Sunday. We also have an episode coming up in the future on how to witch-proof your home, your barn, your smokehouse in the old-timey way. Also, what witches have any basis in fact? Not their powers necessarily or what they do, but were they a real-life person? There is some scant historic record of some of these people who were attributed to being witches, and I want to unpack that a little bit. Also, some more exciting stuff. We have a whole episode on graveyards, the burying grounds, crypts and tombs, and it should be wonderful. And also an upcoming Haunted Hollister, Missouri episode. So I've got a few others under my belt that we're going to try to get produced between now and then, including Ghost Story Roundtable with those who tell ghost stories around the Ozarks. And also, do you have a mystery or legend that needs plumbed? Or maybe you have a wild story to share or something you want to let us know what's going on. Be sure to drop us a line at Wild and Woolly Ozarks at gmail.com. I want to once again thank my guest today, Amber Vance. Be sure to check her out and follow her. I want to thank my producer, Kenneth Herren, media coordinator, Raina Barth, Klein W. Herren, house ornithologist, and until next time, Amber, if you'd take us home.
Y'all be careful. And boys, if you would, please be good to the tourists. Bye now.
Bye, folks. Thank you much.